Number 7, do you think A-Wax is a better rapper than Jacka? To be honest, I think, and this ain't no shade towards Jacka or no props towards A-Wax because I'm cool with A-Wax. But I grew up off Jacka. You get what I'm saying? Like, I was listening to Jacka before I was listening to A-Wax. Facts. You feel me? But I don't really I'm not gonna say I was listening to Jacka like riding around playing his music, but I was hearing Jacka more than I was hearing A-Wax when I was growing up. You get what I'm saying? Like, you know, Jacka got some hits that "Hey Girl" and a few other ones though. You get what I'm saying? Like, but I wasn't a big old Jacka fan. You get what I'm saying? I wouldn't get in the car and say, "Put on that Jacka." No, you feel me? But I could say A-Wax, to me, A-Wax is a more universal artist than Jacka, for sure. All you gotta do is go listen to their music. It don't matter who you think better, just go listen to their music. A-Wax has a more universal sound than Jacka. But Jacka got that gritty, that street, you know what I'm saying, what the projects want to hear. For sure, for sure. So, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna go with Wax though. You know what I'm saying? Because that's my brother and he's dope. But shout out Jacka. Ain't no disrespect, ain't no shade. It is what it is. That's just my opinion though. And like y'all always say, man, everybody, man, you know, that's his opinion, man. You can't be mad, so don't be mad at my opinion. To answer your question.
When
Number
you talk
8.
about the Bay Area and its musical identity, there are certain names that don't just contribute to the culture. They define it. And one of those names, without question, is the Jacka. Born Dominic Newton, the Jacka wasn't just another rapper trying to make noise. He was a foundational piece of what people recognize as that authentic Bay Area sound. Coming out of Pittsburgh, California, he built his reputation during a time when the Bay already had heavy hitters, but he still managed to carve out a lane that was completely his own. What made the Jacka different wasn't just his voice, his beat selection, or even his catalog. It was his energy. He brought a certain calmness to street music, a level of introspection that made you feel like you were listening to someone who had really lived what he was talking about, but didn't need to yell it to prove a point. He came up as part of the group Mob Figaz, alongside artists like Husala and AP. That movement helped shape early 2000s Bay Area rap, especially on the independent side. At a time when major labels weren't necessarily tapping into Northern California the way they should have, artists like the Jacka kept the region alive through grind, consistency, and connection to the streets. And that's really where his impact stands out. The Jacka wasn't just making music, he was building relationships. He worked with everybody. From underground artists to more established names, he always seemed willing to collaborate, which helped unify the Bay in a way that not many artists were able to do. His catalog is deep. Projects like Tear Gas, the Street album, and countless collaborations showed his range. He could give you street records, reflective tracks, motivational vibes, all without losing authenticity. And that's a big reason why people say he carried the Bay, because he was consistent, visible, and respected across different circles. He wasn't chasing trends, he was the sound. Now, when you talk about influence, it's not always about numbers or charts, it's about how people move because of you. And the Jacka had artists across Northern California, and even outside of it, adopting that same laid-back, melodic, introspective style. He made it okay to be real without being overly aggressive. He gave people something they could ride to, think to, and live to. And then, everything changed. When the Jacka passed away in 2015, it hit the Bay Area differently than most losses. This wasn't just a rapper dying, this was someone who people genuinely felt connected to. The reaction wasn't just on social media, it was in the streets, in the music, in the conversations. You could feel the gap. Artists paid tribute, fans revisited his music. And there was this collective realization that a major pillar of the culture was gone. It's one thing to lose talent. It's another thing to lose someone who helped hold the scene together. His passing didn't just affect his immediate circle. It affected the entire Bay Area ecosystem. And even years later, you still hear his influence in the way certain artists structure their music, the tone they use, and the way they approach storytelling. Now, when conversations come up comparing artists, especially names like the Jacka and A-Wax, you have to understand context. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. But some opinions are shaped more by personal relationships than by an objective look at the music itself. When you hear someone like Lavish D speak on A-Wax, it's important to recognize that his perspective may be influenced by personal ties, loyalty, or shared history. That doesn't automatically make his opinion invalid, but it does mean it might not be completely unbiased. Because when you look at it from a broader standpoint, catalog, influence, consistency, cultural impact, it's hard to put A-Wax in the same category as the Jacka. That's not even meant as disrespect, it's just an honest assessment. The Jacka's reach, his collaborations, his longevity, and the way he connected with people, it's on a different level. And if we're being real, there are a lot of listeners who feel like they haven't heard records from A-Wax that match the depth, emotion, or replay value that the Jacka consistently delivered. That doesn't mean A-Wax hasn't made music or built a fan base. It just means that when you're talking about who really moved the culture, who really left a lasting imprint, the conversation leans heavily in the Jacka's favor. And this brings a bigger lesson into focus. Perception versus reality. In music and in life, people's opinions are often shaped by who they know, not just what they know. So when you hear strong takes, you have to ask yourself, is this based on the work or is it based on the relationship? Because those are two completely different things. Now, the consequence of not recognizing that difference is that narratives can get distorted. New listeners might come in and take those opinions as fact without understanding the history behind them. That's how legacies can slowly get misrepresented over time. So what's the solution? The solution is to do your own research. Go back and listen to the catalogs. Pay attention to how artists were received in their prime. Look at the collaborations, the consistency, the influence. Don't just take someone else's word for it, especially when that person might have a personal connection that shapes their viewpoint. And most importantly, respect the history. Because artists like the Jacka didn't just make songs, they helped build a foundation that others are still benefiting from today. Final thought. The Jacka represents a certain era and energy that can't really be recreated. His music still lives, his influence is still felt, and his name still holds weight in conversations about the Bay Area. Comparisons will always happen. That's part of hip-hop. But when you're talking about impact, legacy, and cultural significance, some names just stand in a different space, and the Jacka is one of them.